Hey guys, what's up? It's Finch here, and today we're going to be discussing how to abuse Toxapex in SSOU. Toxapex has been a Pokemon that we've discussed in this channel quite a bit recently. We've discussed why it might be broken, or even suspect-worthy. We've discussed what role it plays in the metagame, and so much more. How it fits on teams as a defensive pivot, a utility Pokemon, a defensive wall, and so on and so forth. But now, since it's such a prevalent part of the metagame, we're going to be discussing how to abuse it, because I've noticed a phenomenon in the metagame where prior to the official ladder tournament, we saw a lot of balances with things like Toxapex and Clefable and Corviknight and so on and so forth. And then the official ladder tournament began, and you noticed that there was a wide array of hyper offense and stall teams. Stall was as prominent as it ever was in the metagame because stall really wasn't that great in the pre-OLT metagame, but then it shot up in usage, and Toxapex obviously was very common in that stall. And hyper offense was also seen as very good, as it was able to grind through the ladder quickly and efficiently. Because of that, the metagame really focused on these two extremes, and that was a dynamic that played greatly into the hand of Toxapex. That made it so that it was, in my opinion, borderline unhealthy. It was able to not necessarily counter many things, but check things, live hits, and force status, force item displacement, and so many other things as well. The dynamic of Toxapex having knockoff plus Scald with Haze to shut down setup, or Toxic to enforce even more stats, it's a very restricting dynamic for a Pokemon with such bulk and accessibility thanks to Regenerator. It filled a lot of roles, and because of that it made it one of the best Pokemon in the tier. However, as recently as the end of OLT laddering, which is now about a week and a half ago, I feel as if 2.5 weeks, I think it's like a week and anywhere from a week and a half to 2 weeks ago, whatever it might be. Starting the middle of Cycle 4, I noticed that the metagame started to really conform back to balance, and balance being more common than hyper offense or stall, especially stall, which in my eyes is really falling off right now. It's giving us a lot more room in team building. So we're able to use new wall breakers, new win conditions, new utility Pokemon, new pivots, and all of a sudden with the metagame being less restricted and more open, I feel as if there are new ways to exploit things like Toxapex or Clefable or Skarmory/Corviknight or even Mandibuzz, these Pokemon that we see as defensive staples. There are more ways to exploit them. And I feel as if Toxapex is something that a lot of you guys don't like. A lot of you guys want to find a way to beat, exploit, and make quick work of. And because of that, I'm making this video to A, help you guys figure out how to make your so that your team is not worried about Toxapex, and B, I want to make you guys know that I think the metagame is going in the right direction for once. And we still need work, we still need suspects or retests or whatever might be on the table, but I think above all else, we need to evolve with the metagame, because if we don't, then we're just going to be staying in the past while the metagame continues on to the future, and we're definitely going to fall behind. So this is a video that's going to be dedicated to abusing Toxapex, and if you guys want me to do this on other walls like Blissey or Clefable or whatever else, definitely let me know in the comments below, and I might just consider doing that. Might save it till the future, might do it in a couple days or a couple weeks, we'll have to wait and see, but in the meantime, this is one on Toxapex. So Toxapex, of course, it uses more of a physical defensive spread more often than not, but special defensive Toxapex is still a very viable option. The special defensive set helps quite a bit, checking things like, say, pivoting into Kyurem to see what moves locks into Q, Live Specs Freeze Dry comfortably, or Volcarona. Dragapult, any Dragapult you can keep in check, yeah, that's great. You live a Life Orb Psychic from Alakazam after, say, Stealth Spark and knock it off, or the list goes on. Really good against rain teams with Kingdra, that's a great example. You're able to stomach an attack from Zard Sun or Venusaur Sun and then haze it off, you know. Take a +2 hit from Gengar. I mean, let me go down a list of viable Pokemon this year just to show some more examples. Aegislash, oh yeah, you're able to shrug up Aegislash Shadow Ball with ease. You're able to live a Draco from Hydreigon easily and just kind of pivot in and out, you know. Rotom Heat, you can live a +2 hit from Enhaze or Knockoff, whatever it might be. Live an Overdrive from Toxtricity, potentially. We can go down and more, but there are only so many special attackers, and we really hit on most of them. But the fact of the matter is that special defensive Toxapex is a pretty decent Pokemon as well. So there's some variety, and therefore there are some physical Pokemon that can break through more specially defensive Toxapex. For example, Crawdon does much better against specially defensive Toxapex, especially since it's less likely to run things like Baneful Bunker or Rocky Helmet. And in addition to that, Pokemon like, say, Excadrill take it out from Earthquake from a higher range, or Hawlucha are able to potentially beat it more likely than not. And you could go down. So there are some Pokemon that maybe I don't list here, but could abuse more of special defense Toxapex, but I want to note that we're focusing on what actually is the most common Toxapex, which is, you know, Scald plus Knockoff / Toxic, but Knockoff being more common, with Recover and Haze's last 2 slots, but other options include Baneful Bunker, toxic spikes, and I mean, I suppose you see the occasional poison jab as well. That was really more of a pre-DLC thing back when Pokemon Primarina was surging in usage, but more on that later. I reckon that all these Pokemon are great in Pokemon and metagame, but also, and particularly, they're very good at abusing Toxapex. So we're going to get into this. These are the offensive options, and I know a lot of you guys like having firepower on your team, so I wanted to start off with these guys. The first one, and perhaps the biggest one, is Toxapex Serum. Freeze Dry is able to absolutely annihilate it, 2 killing it, even if it gets specs knocked off, but easily doing, you know, upwards of 75-80%, even if it's got some special defense, if not potentially killing after Stealth Rock. The Toxapex and Draco Meteor does a ton too. You can run Earth Power over Focus Blast, you're not worried about Publicity as well, and you'll do a ton to that in Aegis/2. So, yeah, it goes a long way. As for potential partners for it, you see a lot of times listening at lore and Toxic as well, like Teleport Clefable, or Teleport Blissey, or U-Turn Corviknight, and those kind of cores are really able to help stimulate Kyurem usage, and in my eyes, I think that goes a long way. Next off, we have Alakazam. Nasty Pot Alakazam is a great Pokemon right now. Of course, it is kept a bit in check by Special Defensive Corviknight, especially since it's reliant on accuracy of a move like Focus Blast. However, once you get your Life Orb knocked and you recover up a little bit, or if it's not knockoff, then Alakazam is just able to absolutely demolish Toxapex. It's really no contest whatsoever, and I think that goes a long way. Magic Guard makes it so it's immune to Stalled Burn and Toxic Poison. Psychic's obviously a very strong, super effective attack that goes a long way. And all in all, Alakazam also gives you... Sorry guys, I am so tired right now. I woke up feeling great, but I had this pizza and it went right to it was like barbecue chicken pizza, and it kills my stomach right now, and I'm just like so out of it. But I promise I get this video done, so I want to get it up by like 4:30, 5 o'clock today. Anyway, my personal story aside, yeah, Alakazam just does a great job at abusing not only Toxapex, but also just stats-reliant walls in general, as they aren't able to break through it offensively, which goes a long way for Alakazam usage. Next up, we have two of everyone's favorite electric types. We have Toxtricity and Zeraora. Toxtricity is something I've showcased on this channel many a time, and Overdrive is just able to absolutely demolish, annihilate Toxapex. You know, Scald might do like 25-30, Knockoff might do, 25-30, whatever it might be, but even without Life Orb, or even if you're burned, Overdrive is going to do the trick. You do have to get creative, U-turn or teleport. We're getting into pivots a bit later on. Definitely stay tuned for the section on pivots, guys, because these Pokemon don't do it alone, and I'm not saying you need, I need 4 Pokemon to counter Toxic. No. Every single team is going to have walls that struggle to pivot in. Offensive Pokemon struggle to pivot into maybe every wall, but with right pivoting, you're able to provoke sequences where it gets in safely, and that goes a long way. But anyway, yeah, Toxtricity can provide a great offensive presence there. Next up, we have Zeraora. I'm honing in on special steps because physical ones get screwed over by Scald Burns or Baneful Bunker Poisons, and it's just like, oh, dang, and honestly, I'd even run Modest on this because, you tend to see a lot of Dragapult running plus attack, or plus special attack right now, which opens you up to run a more Modest Zeraora, because you don't need that run plus speed Dragapult. But if you want to outrun opposing Dragapult and Zeraora, then you can run plus. It really depends, it's a crapshoot. But you get my point. Anyway, next up we have Volcarona. Volcarona with the sub Quiverdance set. I used this back in World Cup. It's still solid right now. And of course, it sucks against Blissey and Tyranitar, but that aside, it's able to really lure in and abuse Toxapex quite nicely. I definitely advise trying this out. Yeah, I think that the modest nature, it also makes it so that Psychic's 2 killing always, and a +1 is doing a ton. It's got no physical defense and no special defense. It could even kill at +1 after Stealth Rock in Burn, I believe, or Stealth Rock in Sand, something like that. Yeah, so keep that in mind too. And last but not least, one of the better ones is Nasty Pot Dragon. It's +2 Draco's always killing, and able to get a Nasty Pot up pretty easily. You could even run Roost over Flamethrower, or potentially Flash Cannon. The Clef's on every team, so you gotta be careful there. But yeah, I definitely think that Hydreigon offers a lot right now, and it's able to abuse Toxapex as well. So these are 6 really offensive options that are able to abuse it. And Vulcan, Hydreigon, and Toxtricity, and I guess Alakazam too, they kind of fit under the umbrella of win conditions, but they also function more as pure breakers, and that goes a long way. Speaking of win conditions, though, we also have some win conditions that really appreciate Toxapex. I mean, Zarude and Calm Mind, Thunderbolt, Clefable, and Calm Mind / Shock Arena, because they just use a setup file. Sure, it could haze, but it's never winning these 1v1s, and eventually it can just be made a fool of. And with threat conditions, you could actually just turn that into the game being won, and it makes Toxapex complete liability. Unless it really hard wall something you have in your team, and Toxapex is more of a check to things than hard counter, so that's not likely, then you can make Toxapex definitely not carry its own weight just by using one of these Pokemon in my eyes, and that says a lot. It goes a long way, and even if you lose the Life Orb on one of the Commanders or leftovers in Zarude, it's still able to really come in handy and keep them in check. So yeah, jungle healing, for those of you who don't know, it negates the status. So for example, if you get scald burnt or toxic poison, then it's like, oh, who cares? And you also gain 25% health, which is more damage than any toxic like and poison move can do. And bulk up with power, where crunch goes a long way, especially if you knock off the leftovers from packs or trick it, whatever it might be. So yeah, then Calm Mind plus Thunderbolt Clefable and Calm Mind plus Sideshock from Nucleus. I mean, they're both immune to status. I think it just goes without saying how it works. Basically, you set up and then you hit super effective attacks, and eventually they can't haze, left recover enough, and you either run out of PP or you just beat them and force them out. You know, yeah, it's really foolproof, and that's great. Next up, we've had Arene. It just, you know, it bounces back to status. It might take a Scald Burner or a Knock here and there, but of course, it's still muscle past it, and you run enough speed to creep it. Calm Mind Pre-Marina is a bit less straightforward. You gotta burn it and maybe knock it off. Burning with Scald's easy, and then you just sub and you Calm Mind in his face, and it's just like, oh, that's cool. Eventually you stall it recovers, because +1 Scald and Moonblast doing like 20-25% plus burn, you know, up to 30%, and it's like, oh damn, I don't have enough recover PP, and I can barely even do any damage to it, so it sets up sub and just sets up all over me. And speaking of setting up sub and setting up all over it, there's also Togekiss, which with the nasty plot set can do much of the same. So actually it's funny, we see 4 separate fairy types really abusing Pex, despite Pex abusing fairy types by resisting it. So in a way you can kind of use that against them. It goes a long way, and I think that's pretty cool in terms of dynamic. Then you also see Nicholas and Zarude, which you can set up on it too. So yeah, there are definitely a lot of ways to kind of negate the effectiveness of Toxapex if you play your cards right. Of course you have to be careful in how you do it, but so long as you approach it optimally, it goes a long way. Some things that'll help making these approaches with the offensive or setup Pokemon possible will be some of the utility checks and pivots that I want to allude to as well. First off, let's get into the utility checks for Toxapex in the SSOU metagame. The first one's going to be Trick Clefable, a Pokemon that's running rampant in the metagame right now. It's perhaps one of, if not the most common Clefable sets at the moment. And if you trick it, a choice Scarf, or in my opinion, Sticky Barb is better, so Sticky Barb, then it's like, oh, my Toxapex is useless, and yeah, basically is. So that's that. Not much else to put it, yeah. Anyway, sorry, I'm tired. What was I trying to say? Oh, my bad. So yeah, if you trick it Sticky Barb, it's going to waste all its recovery really quickly. It just isn't really a great dynamic for the Toxapex user, I'd say. And of course, you get Stealth Rock up every time Toxapex comes in, which basically forces it out to go to Corviknight or Extra to spin, whatever it might be, so yeah. Next up, we have Gengar. Gengar can trick it, and that's really it. You also get the Black Sludge, which like helps you heal recovery, so that's cool. And tricking goes a long way. It could also potentially be with Nasty Plot, but you don't love taking Scalds, especially not knockoffs, so you gotta be careful there. But Trick is huge, and oftentimes Toxapex comes in the pivot, so that can go a long way. The same can be said for the next Pokemon in Togekiss. Again, just tricking it, displace the item, then just like the Nasty Plot set, you're able to set up on it, so that goes a long way too. I mean, a Trick Pex is pretty useless, so yeah. And Trick isn't only in the metagame for Pex, it's also there for Clef, and for Corv, and Scarm, and Mandibuzz, and Hippowdon, and you know, so many Pokemon you can cripple. So it's not like it's a, oh my god, I have to run this for Pex. No, you can run it for a whole slew of things, and it goes such a long way. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. And last, but certainly not least, we have 2 Spikers, and Ferrothorn and Skarmory, because Spikes make it so switching in Pex is so much harder. And honestly, they don't even mind taking a burn necessarily, in most matchups anyway, so you know, set up a couple layers of Spikes, and just like, oh crap, my Pex is using all its recovers, or it's forced to switch out promptly, or whatever it might be in the long haul. It's just not good for the Pex user. And finally, there's also Whirlpool, Perish, Song, Protect, and you know, Toxic, or Play Rough, or Rest, or whatever the hell you want to run last. The Azumarill, I suppose it's okay. I've never really used the set. I think it's pretty obvious once you see like leftovers or non-Velodrome, but hey, to each their own. It's definitely solid. So yeah, I'm curious to see how that'll be used in the metagame as we see it. And yeah, no. So let me know your thoughts on these Pokemon, and this really should be Sap Sipper. Yep, fix that. But anyway, a lot of cool Pokemon right now in the tier that abuse Toxapex, but there's also some Pokemon that they're able to pivot in and out of it. They don't necessarily directly beat it, or they can indirectly beat it rather, but they don't like knock it out like in one move. Like they don't have that Specs Thunderbolt, or the +1 Psychic, or the Freeze Dry, or you know, the Quiver Dance, Nasty Plot, whatever it might be. They don't have it, but you got things like Teleport Clefable, which is actually one of the best ways to fight against Toxapex. So you had a Wish Up. Let's say you go to your Urshifu on turn like 8, and it takes a an Earthquake from a Hippowdon, as it like, you know, it's trying to break it down. Maybe 2 kills Hippowdon, sure, let's go with that. And so you get 1 kill with your Urshifu, and you're down to like, you know, 52%. And then it's like, oh, they got a Toxapex, they're trying to go, it's like, check the Urshifu from there. And you're like, oh, I'll go to my Clef. and I'll click Wish, and he'll do like 8% with Knockoff, and then 12% with Scald, and then I'll click Teleport, and the next turn he switches out to this like Steel type, and I get my Shifa back at full, my Clef's almost at full, and the Pex is like, oh crap, next time you do it kills me with Hippo already down. It's like, okay. It's a really net positive sequence, and Toxapex is able to be abused a ton because it can't really do much to things like Clefable. And Wishport Clef, because of that, is like really great against like the toxic, Scald reliant Pokemon that can't do much direct damage to it. It's able to abuse them a ton. It forces proactivity, so it forces Toxapex out or to be minimized, and that's just fantastic. Same goes for Scald plus Future Sight plus Teleport on Slow Brothers, Slowbro in particular, but Slowking's actually seen some usage, although more so with an Assault Vest than anything else recently, so that's cool. But yeah, a more prominent teleport user is going to be Blissey. Blissey, teleport. It does fear knockoff from Toxapex, so you got to be careful about that with the hazard game, but it can go a long way if it's not knockoff or if you already lost your item for whatever reason. So yeah, and then also Xatu, I never really run it, but it can run a teleport set, and it can also, potentially brush off things like Toxapex and leave them back. And last but not least, Magnezone with Volt Switch is great, but also you can like teleport as a fourth move on specs, whatever it might be. But so coming to Toxapex a couple times, really threaten it, force it out, etc. So that's great. Yeah. A lot of these are pretty self-explanatory, I hope, but if you guys have any questions on Toxapex, how to beat it, how to handle it, or what you think on it, let me know in the comments below. If you have any thoughts on these offensive options, win conditions, utility checks, and pivots, let me know in the comments below. I know this is a bit more brief Metagame Monday, but I'm like about to lay it down. I'm so tired. Oh my goodness. And, Mondays suck. Anyway, yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I hope this guys give you some insight. Definitely let me know your thoughts below. Have a great day. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out Janvez book. Join the Discord. So much more coming up in the future, guys. Thank you so much for 5,000 subscribers, and have a great day. All right. Peace out, guys. Fuck Toxapex.